Hello and welcome to Psychgeist, where we talk about the psychology of the era, the science of games. I am your host, Dr. Rachel Kowert, and on today's episode of Jargon Schmargon, we're going to be talking about loot boxes, sometimes also referred to as loot crates or prize crates. Loot boxes are consumable virtual items that can be redeemed to receive a randomized selection of virtual rewards. The kind of loot within a loot box varies, but it could be something to customize your in-game avatar, some funny hair or a new outfit. It could be new equipment, new armor or weapons, or it could be something consumable like a special potion or gems. Loot box concepts originated from MMORPG loot systems, all roads lead to MMOs, and from free-to-play and mobile game mechanics. But despite this, they are ubiquitous today and found across platform and genre. Players can obtain loot boxes in a variety of ways. They can buy them directly with real-world money. They can buy them with in-game money, which sometimes can also be bought with real-world money. They can be acquired through play, whether it's playing a certain amount of time has passed, or completing certain in-game achievements. At its most basic level, a loot box is a form of monetization. That is, it's a process that video game publishers use to generate revenue. This is because they can be bought with real-world money or in-game currency. It is also worth noting that sometimes items that come from a loot box can be traded and or sold for money on third-party platforms. The randomization part of loot boxes works on what's often referred to as gacha mechanics, which are the same mechanics you will find in blind boxes or capsule toys like Pokemon cards or Kinder Eggs. Damn those Kinder Eggs, my kids love them, but if you've ever stepped on the little yellow capsules inside of them, they are worse than Legos. Gacha mechanics are lottery mechanics. So in the case of loot boxes, a virtual lottery. You roll the dice or pull the lever or choose a random box on the screen and you will get a randomly allocated item that varies in rarity and value. These mechanics work on what we call intermittent reinforcement or variable ratio reward schedule. Let me illustrate with a famous study, or series of studies really. B.F. Skinner did a series of studies with rats in boxes that have come to lay the foundation of psychological science as we know it. Though honestly, I feel like a good chunk of psychological science is based off rats in boxes. B.F. Skinner wanted to study operant conditioning, which is a method of learning based on rewards and punishments. Skinner wanted to determine that if a behavior is reinforced or rewarded, would it be more likely to be repeated? Whereas if a behavior is punished, would it occur less frequently or would it extinguish? So he put rats in a specially designed box that came to be known as a Skinner box. And in this box, there was a lever and there was food and a little chute that food would drop down. So in one instance, he put the rat in the box, and whenever he pushed the lever, every time he pushed the lever, he got a piece of food. This was positive reinforcement. And what Skinner found is that the rat was highly motivated to push the lever and get the food. Theory confirmed. Positive reinforcement strengthened the behavior. But then he wanted to see if different schedules of reinforcement had different effects on learning. So Skinner devised different ways of delivering reinforcement. Some were based on how hard the rat worked. The rat had to push the lever harder to get the reward. And some were based on different rates of reinforcement. One condition was the intermittent reinforcement or variable ratio condition, whereas the rat would be randomly rewarded with food. Sometimes the first push, sometimes the 10th push, sometimes the 35th push. It wasn't clear when a push would lead to the reward. And in this condition, the variable ratio reward condition, the rats were the most motivated to continue the behavior. They worked the hardest, they pushed the lever the fastest, but they also stopped the behavior. It was extinguished the slowest. So they worked harder and faster. They didn't want to stop pushing the lever because the unpredictability of when they would be rewarded kept them engaged. Variable ratio reinforcement is the same mechanic that underscores some forms of gambling, like slot machines, but also other activities like fishing. Looking at you, Animal Crossing. The fact that loot boxes use the same kind of reinforcement or variable ratio reward schedule has led to concern that it should be regulated as gambling. In fact, today loot boxes are at a series of debates about their perceived similarity to gambling and whether that should lead to greater regulation, but also the ethicality of loot boxes, especially in regards to being marketed to younger children. But those are discussions for another day and will be discussed in more detail in an upcoming State of the Research report short on loot boxes. The TLDR, though, is that loot boxes run on these gacha mechanics that vary from gambling in two very important ways. First, you always get something. May not be what you want, but you always get something. And secondly, there are free and paid options. You can obtain a loot box without spending real world money. So, loot boxes, consumable virtual items that contain randomized rewards of fluctuating in and out of game value. They may have originated from MMOs and mobile games, but today they are available across platform and genre. Underscoring loot box reward mechanics is this idea of intermittent reinforcement, which has led to some concern that loot boxes are too similar to gambling and should be regulated. However, this argument fails to recognize that loot boxes differ from gambling in two important ways, and that you always get something and there are ways to acquire them without investing real-world money. If you like this video and want to see more, please like and subscribe. And until next time, be excellent to each other and always cite your sources.